Loose front end making popping noises. Well, you came to the right place to figure it out because I just went through the entire front end of this truck behind me to figure out where all my rattles, pops, and horrible scary noises were coming from. And they're pretty common. Now to start diagnosing this problem, we're going to start north by the steering and work our way south. This truck has a 2-inch leveling kit, which means it has a drop bracket for the track bar. Now, a very common issue that you will see is that one side of the axle sticks out further than the other side of the axle. That's due to these cams. They're offset on either side. Now, this truck having a 2-inch level, you need to offset the cam to the passenger side so that it pulls the axle back over to the driver's side. I know that sounds like it's the opposite of what it should be. Most of these come with instructions depending on how tall your lift is and what year your truck is as to what side you need to have the cams offset to. Moving down from the drop bracket, we have our track bar, which is where our first joint is, where we will run into problems. Now, oftentimes these won't be able to flex in terms of if you grab the track bar itself and you try to flex it with your hands, it will not move. That does not mean that it's good. If the joint is flat, as in there's no more grease in the joint, there's a high likelihood that it is bad and is going to cause slop in play in your steering. Now, moving forward from the track bar, we have our drag link, which is attached to our pitman arm. Oftentimes, this joint will also be bad because it is a non-serviceable joint unless you go aftermarket and then you get a grease nipple. That moves us down to the opposite side of the axle where we have our first tie rod joint. Now, this tie rod joint serves one purpose, and that is to make sure that our steering wheel is straight. This is something you can do in your driveway. If your steering wheel is not straight, you can adjust this from left to right in order to recenter your steering wheel. Now, all the way in the front of our axle, going from end to end, is what I tend to call our tie rod bar. And this is where a lot of times you'll hear noise coming from. As you can see, I cannot move this bar. The joints do not move. If there's any play in this bar and you're able to move the entire bar up and down with your hand, those joints are bad and you need to replace both of these tie rod ends. Oftentimes you'll hear a clunk coming from here because there's enough play that is allowing the bar to flop up and then back down when you hit bumps. So if you hear a clank, there's a very high likelihood that these joints are bad, and your way to check that is you are able to flex this bar up and down. Now, related but unrelated to the steering are our front U-joints, which in this truck are still bad, as are the sway bar end links. But this is the other point where you're going to hear lots of clanking and clunking coming from your front end. You can often check and replicate the sound by putting a pry bar through the yoke and through the U-joint. And that's the movement and the sound you're looking for, often exaggerated by a bump in the road, allowing it to have more play. That's one of the main clunks that you will hear. So I hope that was informative for some people that are trying to track down these random clunks and clanks that they hear coming from the front end, which seem to be very common. I see it pretty often on the Facebook pages and the Facebook forums, people saying that, what is this noise? Where is it coming from? You also still want to check your ball joint and some other parts of the front end, but these are good places to start because generally the steering parts go neglected. Now, when it comes to buying parts, most guys are going to tell you to go OEM, or they're going to tell you to buy another companies that are usually more than you would need. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those parts. If you want to upgrade, there's nothing wrong with that. But a company that a lot of people that don't know about, which make very high quality front end steering parts, are called XRF. So if you don't want to buy OEM and you don't want to go aftermarket with a smaller company, you can use XRF. You can find them on eBay or go on their website. I've used their front end parts in a whole bunch of my different trucks, so I've never had a problem. Some of them come with serviceable grease nipples, some of them do not. I wish that my track bar did, but in this case did not offer that. So take a look for yourself and see if there's any parts on there that suit your fancy. Hop onto your truck, take a look, see if you can figure out what's going on, bring your flashlight and a pry bar, and you should be good to go.